Good evening. My name is Mike Sullivan, and welcome to our show. Our topic this evening will be a little different than usual. Usually we're talking about politics, economics, or something else that you might want to get mad about. But this evening my guest will be Reverend James Barnett. The Reverend is the director of Stop the Killing, which has been a very successful organization here in the city of Charlotte. I appreciate you being here with us tonight.
I appreciate you having me here.
Reverend, I'd like to start off. I think that most of us here in Charlotte have had an opportunity to see the Stop the Killing, the bumper stickers, and we're aware of what the overall mission is. But if you could give us a little background history on Stop the Killing, when it came about, and what its mission is.
Okay, the name of our organization is the Crusade, and we have a campaign that's called Stop the Killing. The Crusade came out of a program in Nicaragua. In 1986, I had the opportunity to go there. It was a group called Witness for Peace. And later I was hired as minority outreach coordinator to go around talking to people of color about the war in Central America. But most people were not interested until they heard about the drugs that was coming into the country. So we began to focus on the drugs in 1988, trying to do something about the drugs in the community. So it wasn't until 1991 that we added to our program the Stop the Killing component. The Observer ran a 2-page spread of all people who had been killed during 1990 on January 1st, 1991. And we saw all of those faces, and most of them was black men. So we saw as drugs increased in the community, so did the violence. So we decided we got to do something to address the number of men, particularly African-American men, that we are losing. So we added a component called Stop the Killing.
I know that with you being an individual who is literally on the front line, I mean, you're out there, you see what the effects are, you see what's causing it. There've been some conversation about which one does the killing. Is it the money involved in drugs, or is it the drugs themselves? As far as someone having a physical effect to it, which one do you think it is? Do you think it's the money element, or do you think it's the actual effects of the drugs themselves on the body?
Well, it depends on which one you're looking at now. You got the homicide, it's the money that's involved in it. And most of our young men were being killed, not over overdose. They was killed fighting over territory, trying to control a neighborhood. Somebody may have gotten drugs that didn't pay for them. In the early ages of the program, we saw a lot of killings, just sort of really senseless killing over a jacket or sneakers. One young man may have an expensive jacket, and he may get shot just for that jacket. We began to address some of those type of crimes in the very beginning, and those are the type of ones we figured that we could raise level of awareness and do something about.
When I first came back to Charlotte, and I had a chance I'm from this area, but I lived in Washington for a while, where they have a tremendous problem with gangs. There was some talk at one time in Charlotte that there was major gangs in this area. Is it like an organized gang that you're finding is involved in the killing, or is it more of a sporadic one-on-one situation with people?
It was more sporadic here, and I thank God it hadn't gotten to the gangs. I don't think we've been able to turn it around. We was able to get in before it really got out of control. We saw it escalated. It was said by the end of 1996 there would be in excess of 240 people killed that year. We set a goal and said by the end of 1996 we're going to have a homicide rate less than 100 by race level of awareness, going door to door, talking to people, doing candlelight vigils, getting bumper stickers. We believe that the only way you could turn this around was to touch the hearts of people. And the 1996 ended with 71 murders. That was a big decrease in the murder rate. But there had never been that really large amount of celebrating that we've been looking for. People didn't buy into the program at the very beginning. There was a lot of open criticism when we first started the program. That hurt in the beginning, that people just never heard of people going into it for high crime areas, standing with the people, without any weapons. And particularly African American men said, nobody can save us from us but us.
I know there's been a lot of talk recently in reference to the social functions as far as movies and literature and books and music. Do you think that has some effects on individuals, especially young people who traditionally are more influenced by pop culture than, say, other older individuals?
That has a effect on one hand, but what you need is a counter, and we don't have the counter. On the other hand, when I came up, I remember, during the Richard Pryor days, how Richard Pryor used all that profanity. Mm-hmm. But there was something on the other side. We had our grandparents and our parents who had taught us, that this wasn't the right, but they were standing there preaching what was right. Now we have a generation that has come up, and all of this, the rap music, the negativeness. There are very few positives out there. When Richard Pryor, and I don't blame Richard Pryor for doing what he did, it was just a silence within the community. We began to accept those things, and there was a moral breakdown in the community, and we are suffering because of that now, the moral breakdown. We see these things that are wrong, but there are very few people who stand for what is right. We see our young men just proudly walk around now with the pants hanging down, and we don't see a real outgoing campaign in the community to change that. That's what happened when we saw the killing in our community. We said we've got to get out here and do something about this. Nobody's going to stop this but us. But we got attacked in the early. We look back now and we laugh. We're going to be celebrating our 10th anniversary this year, and we look back at those things that we came through. How we were talking about, going out there and turning it around, and people laughing and saying you can't do it. That's not even trying. You're wasting your time. And that's what has hurt us in this community. The morals have gone. We're just not really standing for that which is right. We're looking for somebody else to do it for us. We've got to take on ourselves, say we got to make a difference, and the difference got to be within us.
I know that you mentioned earlier about the drop in crime from 1996. 1997, and I'm sure you're aware of the statistic, it dropped tremendously. In fact, I believe there were 59 murders in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. Dropped from 1993, I think, where it was 129.
Right.
What do you think the overall drop, why do you think it's dropped so substantially, which basically is more than half what it was just a few years ago?
And I don't want to just sort of pat us on the back, but I think those supporters of the Stop the Killing movement played a major role in that. There is no way you can continue to preach a sermon that is right and you not touch somebody. So, you continue to say, stop the killing. You continue to say to the brothers, look what you're doing to yourself. The same thing with the campaign with the Mothers Against Drunk Driving. By getting out there, raise level of awareness, you can make a difference. The unfortunate thing about this campaign is that you have a small grassroots group that has really made a difference, but people are sort of reluctant to come in and say, well, you did it, thereby empowering other people. We don't so much want the credit. We want the credit to be given to the people. If you can empower them and say, look, you did this, you decreased the murder rate, then you can go on and do something else. Our next campaign is focusing on the youth. 1998, we're focusing on our youth. We want to try to decrease the youth crime by doing the same thing we did with the Stop the Killing campaign.
I know that you mentioned your relationship with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. How is that relationship? How do they work with you in regards to the mission that you have?
We have a very good work relationship with the police department. Matter of fact, what we have done, we would not have been able to do it without law enforcement, particularly when we're going into the high crime areas. The drug dealers knew that we were working with the police department. Our homicide list, we get those names from the police department. Whatever information we need as far as, this is a drug house, how many times it's been raided, we get that information from the police. We work hand in hand with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department and to a certain degree with alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and the FBI.
I know that and I assume that your organization started in one neighborhood and has grown out from there. Is that a main objective of Stop the Killing, to expand into every neighborhood as much as possible to stop the killing?
Our campaign is twofold now. One, we try to win back a community from drug dealers. And that is done by people within the community coming together. We learned from the early ages that we can go into any community and we can stop the trafficking of drugs. But we don't live in the community. When we are gone, then the traffic picks back up again. So if the community doesn't get involved, we don't go into the community. We do cleanup campaigns, help win back community. Now the other campaign, Stop the Killing, is just citywide, try to raise the level of awareness everywhere. And that's why we got the name so much with Stop the Killing. It's a campaign that people can support, just by passing out flyers or sitting around talking about it. So people grabbed hold of they Stop the Killing when they was reluctant to get in there and do the drug patrols, take to the streets. And we understand that. But now things are beginning to turn around. We've gotten a grant from the city, the county. There are other agencies that are beginning to support us. And we understand that being a grassroots organization, that it's very difficult to get started because, you got to win the confidence of people in high places first, and we have done that to a degree, and we're proud of that. And we want to go on and do some other things. Take the success of this campaign and show what you can do with another campaign.
I wanted to mention it, and I think it's just because in the South, traditionally, Islam and Muslims have not been a major force. A lot of people have noticed that the Nation of Islam is beginning to push moral issues in the black community. How is your relationship with the Nation of Islam, or how do you see them as a force in the community?
Well, I always give the Nation of Islam credit, because when I first started out, they were the ones who came and stood beside me in the very beginning. And I, jokingly say that, the Christians were trying to send Jesus into the drug areas. And when I would say, you got to carry him in. And the Nation of Islam was the ones that came and stood with me in the very beginning. Now we have very few people from the Nation of Islam with us, but they played a major role in the beginning.
I know that over the last couple of years, there have been some conflict with the black community and the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department in reference to some of the questionable shootings that had occurred over the past few years. And it culminated, I guess, this last year in the creation of the Citizens Review Board. How do you see that? Do you think that was a positive move overall as far as the creation of that board?
I think it was a positive move in the sense that there were a lot of people who had some hope in it. I don't see a Citizen Review Board as decreasing the murder rate or helping one way or another, but there was a lot of people who had faith, who believed that it would. So by giving them a Citizen Review Board, you defuse that movement and you can move on. What we were saying, and that, the police shooting did bring a big division within the crusade, the biggest division that had ever come in the group. We almost just got torn apart because of that particular one with Cooper, mm-hmm. when Cooper was shot. But out of that shooting, God has a way of showing us things. More positive came out of that than anything that happened in this city. Because if we begin to say to the people, look what we're doing to ourselves. You raise all this sand when a white police officer shoot us, but we can show you hundreds that have shot us that look like us, and we didn't say anything. So that allowed the eyes to be opened more than anything else. And during the time when Cooper was shot, very few people know the murder rate among black on black was at the lowest of that year in Charlotte, because that level of awareness had been raised. But we just didn't keep it going. But it really raised level of awareness. We began to look at what we're doing to ourselves. And, it was a tragedy, but some good came out of that. It just didn't happen, and he died in vain.
I know that Charlotte is beginning to experience something that traditionally hasn't been an experience in the South. It's the growth of ethnic communities, Latino communities, Vietnamese and Asian communities here in Charlotte. There was a statistic recently that surprised me that said one of the highest crime areas was the area around Eastway and Central, as far as robberies and violent crime. Does Stop the Killing see any mission as far as possibly going outside of West Charlotte and moving into some of these, say, new communities that are starting to develop and have problems?
Only if we are invited in, and we don't go. Like I say, we don't go into the community unless we're invited into the community, because we don't live in the community. And once we leave, that's it. We'll go in where we're invited to. And I do see not only a problem with within these ethnic groups, but I can see them, clashing with each other. I mean, not with each other, but with, say, Hispanics. Mm-hmm. A lot of the Hispanics are now in the African American community. You have a lot of those fused Asians. We don't know each other, and then there's some resentment there. So we see some problems within the problems, and they begin to get really compound and complex problems. But we will be willing to help anywhere we can. Like, we have gone as far as Mexico with a caravan this past year. This month we'll be going to New York with our program. So whether we're invited, we're glad to go in to talk, to help people. But we tell people that nobody can do it but you. You have to do it yourself. If you want your community safe, you got to make it safe.
So if someone lived in a community that was burdened by a high number of crime, they would just need to call you? Would it be one person, or would you want to see a structure? How would they need to go about addressing it to get your support and get your guidance into helping them?
We only need one initial call. One person can call. and then we look at the community. There have been some communities we have gone into where they've been just senior citizens. We know that senior citizens are not going to get out there and walk the streets, and we don't expect them to come, so we will go and stand for them. It may be a community, a lot of times in the community, there's just women, or mostly, particularly in the housing sites, women are head of household. We will go there and stand more so than any other community. But there are some communities where they're nice communities. They've let drugs come in and take over, violence take over. We say to them, until you get together, come and stand with us, it's not going to change. You got to get out here and do something for yourself. We will not take on those problems unless they get out there and take on them with us.
When you say take them on, I've seen some communities where they've literally got a bulldozer and knocked a house down because they said it was nothing but a drug house. It would never be of any use to them per se as a growing part of their community. Does Stop the Killing physically go in there and do that, or they empower the individual so that they can take what actions they feel are appropriate?
We do a number of things. Now, sometimes we would go and just get chairs and just sit in front of a crack house. What we do, we target the buyer rather than the dealer. When you come into a community, we get your license plates. Then we get your address. And then we send you a postcard to let everybody know that you were seen there. And this idea came about when we first started doing drug patrols in Dalton Village. We realized that by standing there, the people who was buying drugs didn't live in Dalton Village, and they saw us, they would turn around and go back. We began to get the license plate, but we didn't know what to do with them, because at that time we didn't have any funds. So I would talk to the district attorney and say, well, it just costs us $1 to get the addresses. And he said, well, I will get them for you if you do one thing. Rather than send a letter, send a postcard. By sending a postcard, the mailman gets to read it. Whoever gets out of the mailbox.
Just laying around for
So that has been the most effective tool that we've had. Just going in, and sometimes we go on a video camera. There have been times that we just go in, we take pictures of people who are coming in to buy drugs, and we put them in a newspaper and just circulate them around in the community. We call it "Guess Who's Coming to the Hood," to show who's coming in, and you can easily take back a community by exposing those who come in to buy the drug. Most people think that it's a black problem. Black folks are the ones who coming in, buying the drug. Black folks are the ones who selling. Black folks getting killed. But when you go on drug patrol, you see an altogether different picture. And I was surprised the first time I went out and started doing this, because when you look at your television, you see the ones who are being shot are black, the ones going to jail are black. You would never think that there would be people from Southeast Charlotte that were sneaking in at night to buy these drugs. Beautiful white woman would come in and have no problem going up to a group of black men to buy drugs. By exposing people like this, it can easily take a neighborhood back, because they'd rather be caught dead than to be caught over in Dalton Village, one of those neighborhoods.
That surprise, I think, as you said, I think a lot of people have an image in their mind of what a drug situation is, and as you said, it's people coming out from all parts of the city, pretty much.
Right. And that's why we target, the buyer rather than the dealer. If you stop the buyer from coming into the neighborhood, the dealer has to leave on his own. He can't make any money. So we say to the dealer, we don't care how much drugs you bring into this community. We just want to see who's coming in to buy them. And we will position ourselves away from the dealer, just at the interest of the community. And those people who will buy drugs will not come in that community and buy drugs with eyes and ears watching them, because some of us are singing on choirs and making decisions downtown. We just don't want to be seen. The unfortunate thing about it is they can leave one neighborhood and go to another one and buy some drugs. But if every community take a stand and focus on the buyer, you can see this turn around quickly. If the police department would just start arresting, say we had 1 month, we're not going to arrest any dealer, we're going to just arrest the buyers, you would see a decrease in the use of drugs.
I know you mentioned that you've been working with the district attorney a good bit recently. Do you find that sometimes, though, that because of their caseloads, that perhaps their resources are so strained that they can't help you in as many ways as they should be able to?
Well, the only way they help us is with information anyway, and maybe coming out to speak. The frustration is with the judicial system is that the caseloads are so heavy that oftentimes, the plea bargains come into play. You got a person who's given 15 years for killing somebody, and you think that person is going to be off the streets for a while. And then, 3 or 4 years later, this guy's back out on the street. That's the most frustrating thing, that to a lot of the parents who've lost loved ones, that they've lost their loved one forever. And here this person is, because the overcrowding in the prisons, he's back out. But I think that has changed now through the new structure sentencing that has come up. But in the past, I mean, there was a lot of bitterness as a result of that. Just killing one another. It just seemed like there was no value on black lives, and that was a frustrating thing. You could go out and you could see a brother would shoot down a white person, and almost instantly.
It's top news story
Right.
for the week.
Yeah, I mean, the young lady that was killed out of UNC, an unfortunate incident. I think it was 3 or 4, black youth involved in that. This system went after, they killed the guy that shot the lady in a confrontation, but they still went after the other 3 that was in there, and they took them to federal courts, and they were going to make an example out of them. Those type of things are really frustrating when you can see the system, the prejudice within the system. So those are things that we've got to change, we've got to overcome. We've got to put value in our lives first and demand that the system do the same thing.
Do you think a lot of it's just bottom line money, that it's perhaps not black or white, it's just that more affluent people, for whatever reason, seems to be the thing that the news identifies with as the general public, and that maybe they're saying that, this person has more intrinsic value because they own more stuff?
I think that's part of it. I think the main part of it is that deep-rooted racism within this country, and it has always been a country, that do not value people of color, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. But my fight is not to try to change that, but to try to change us within. Once we can conquer the enemy within, I think those on the outside respect us more. But I think we need to realize that racism is alive and doing very well. And when you get that in the judicial system, it's by no accident that we've got so many black young men in prison. And we have no boats or planes to bring the drugs in, but yet and still the jails are filled with us. And we raise the issue, but we also say that we have a responsibility to. Just because white folk bring it in doesn't mean that we've got to take it and sell it. But it has to be, again, a twofold fight. We got to also look at those people in high places. I can't remember when the last time there has been a big drug dealer arrested in this city that was not black. So when you start having a picture like this, it's hard for people to realize that the black is not the problem. This is the problem. If you get rid of the blacks, then you get rid of the problem. But there's racism there. This system, I don't see it as really having a real war on drugs, because every now and then a person who can't fish would accidentally catch a big fish. So we got these people who are talking about, winning the war on drugs, but never catching a big fish. There's always the little brothers out there on the street who's got just a small amount of drug. And you take all the people in the prison in Raleigh and put them all together, and the amount of money and the drug they had on do not amount to one kingpin in this country. So we have to realize that racism plays a major role in the sentencing of this country, the way we look at each other. It just plays a major role.
I was in court, I guess about a year ago, and it was a traffic ticket. And there was an individual who was, for whatever reason, was passing a stopped school bus, but I didn't see it. But, it's more of a crime than it is speeding or something like that. And there was a gentleman who was being represented by one of the district attorneys, and she came out, she read the piece of paper, and she goes, "My client," and she looked at him, she goes, "What's your name?" And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this gentleman is being represented by someone who has no idea who they are. Right. And it's just, the system feeds on itself like that.
Right. And once we buy into it, we begin to accept it. I gave up a long time ago of trying to educate the white community about the problem being their problem too. It's like an undercurrent. You can see the blacks on the top, but you can't see what it's doing to the whites on the bottom, because all they're doing is focuses on the black. So I go with the words that Reverend Jesse Jackson said: nobody can save us from us but us. We welcome everybody to come in. This is a war that we all need to be a part of. But there are a lot of people outside of our community who will never get involved because they don't see it as their battle. Why should I get involved? They need to come out sometimes and see their sons and daughters sneaking off at night and coming into the neighborhoods to buy their drugs. So that's an undercurrent there. That this country is going to wake up one day, and it may be too late, and find out that we're all going down the drain.
Well, Reverend, I certainly appreciate you coming here and talking with us about this issue. As I said, Stop the Killing is to me, been a godsend. It has definitely saved many people's lives, countless numbers, and probably changed the lives of so many people that you couldn't possibly even comprehend. Again, the record this past year, Charlotte's murder rate was the lowest percentage, I believe, since the 50s, and it had dropped almost 60% in just, 4 years? Right. So I think that you're doing a great job, and I hope that you will continue. And I hope that you will be here with us again the next Saturday next month, second Saturday each month. Mike Sullivan Show. I'll see you then, and have a good weekend.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away.